Good afternoon. My name is Mike Metcalf. I'm the Interim Chief Officer for Academics and Student Support Services, and this is the fourth meeting of the District Media and Technology Committee. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed, and the meetings of this committee are considered official meetings of a public body and must be publicly noticed and open to the public, and we have done that. I would ask all committee members to go into the chat, if you will, and just type your name so that we get full attendance. I want to thank several people. First, Ken Eklund, who is our Director of Technology. Appreciate his tech support throughout this process. Thank you, Mr. Eklund. Ms. Gephardt, who has coordinated this meeting. She's our Director of Curriculum Instruction. We appreciate that process. Melody Thomas, who, when we asked, was willing to be the chair of this committee. She's done an exceptional job, and we thank you, Ms. Thomas, for your willingness to do that. And then, of course, we want to thank every member of the committee who's given up their time, their energy, and their willingness to serve on the committee. We thank you very much. And I will turn it over to Ms. Thomas. Ms. Gephardt.
And so, Ms. Gephardt, I'll take it from here. Our goal today is to simply review the recommendation. So per policy and regulation 5410R, which we have reviewed several times, we are now ready to review the written report of the findings and recommendations of the reconsideration committee.
Do you see it change, Melody?
Yes. So everybody has had a copy of this. So we gave everybody a chance to go through and review. We did have a couple of recommendations of just small things, like somebody caught a word that needed to be changed. But what we want to do now, we are not going to read through it in detail. What we want to do now is see if there's anything that people feel that we need to change, any recommendations of anything that needs to be added or deleted.
Can I recommend that rather than linking 5410R, that we say see attached, and that we attach that policy to the report rather than a link, because it may not just be electronically provided.
Okay. And Ms. Gephardt, you're writing down the recommendations and then those can be changed? Yeah. Very good. And what we are doing is we are scrolling through, but anybody who is viewing has access to a PDF of this. Anybody who is on the committee, of course, has a copy, and you've had a copy of this that you could add comments to.
I may have mentioned this before, on the recommendation for both these creeks and for Union Pines. We might want to put that the committee supports the recommendation of the building level committee, that, and word it that way. It just reinforces that as we're supporting the decision, we voted to support our recommendation is to support their recommendation. Does that make sense? Word
Yes.
that the right way.
Or even refrain from overturning their recommendation. That's even more specific, if I'm honest, because it wasn't just supporting, it was that I personally didn't feel like I had standing to override it. That's the best way to articulate that from my perspective.
Thank you, Sean.
And I actually wanted to go back to the McDeeds Creek, the 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph. I'm questioning whether we captured what we were trying to capture there. I think we were trying to lead into the example that was shared, but what is there, does that make sense?
I mean, what's there does make sense. It might
Okay.
not be as comprehensive as maybe the discussion we had. I will agree the argument was weak, and so it was thin and it was sort of blunt and not specific. In my head, this process would go: you go to the school, they make a decision, and then if you want to appeal that decision to go to another thing, you need to nuance it or say why that decision was misplaced, not just throw the same thing out again, because a group has already decided that. So then what additional information can you add, or how can you clarify your position so that this district level committee has more information or more specific details that would maybe sway the decision. I just feel like it was just kind of thrown in there, and then we were supposed to think it's okay to use a reference for porn when in fact it was just a reference to magazines that teenagers and young adults any of us can pick up in the grocery store, which is not quite the same thing. I don't know.
Is there a way to reword that sentence? I find that sentence somewhat confusing myself, just the way it's worded. There just may be a more concise way of saying what we're trying to say there. That first sentence.
So is it the complainant's concerns with excerpts from the novel were taken out of context? In other words, does it need to be did not, or do we need to take out did not align with reviewer age recommendations of the complainant's excerpts?
Or is it the complainant's concern that, I don't know, that's not correct either.
I think
or there was concern that the complainants, yeah, go ahead. Somebody else is getting ready to talk.
Well, I think, Melody, you were hitting on it, that there were concerns that the complainant's evidence with the excerpts were taken out of context. So something to that gist, because that was the conversation we all had, was those were pulled out of the context. When you read it within context, it was not as it seemed out of context. So do we say the concerns the complainant shared in the excerpts were taken out of I'm not sure.
I think we definitely get rid of the did not align with viewer age recommendations. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
With that.
maybe it is something like members of the committee expressed that excerpts that were noted in the complaint's concern were taken out of context. For example, something like, I don't know, it does seem a little confusing, that sentence.
The excerpts identified by the complainant were taken out of context. For example, yes.
Yes.
Melanie's got an idea in the chat too that may hit.
Yes, that's what I was just reading. The excerpts identified by the complainant were taken out of context. For example.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that maybe we should add members expressed, because I don't think all members agreed with that. Or maybe not expressed, but I mean, we need to,
Yeah, I mean, is it really, and I don't want to hammer on this the way maybe we're doing, but I don't think that the excerpts were taken out of context. I don't think that's the issue. The issue is that of course they're out of context. The issue is that they were identified as something that they're not necessarily. I wouldn't say that a girl, a feminine teenage magazine is porn. I mean, that's kind of what that comment was about. It's not the same thing. There's nothing that he looks at in that magazine that would even suggest that it is. It's just what a typical heterosexual 17-year-old girl might, like a 17 magazine, I guess. So that's not, I mean, that's a pretty broad stroke to call that porn. I don't think it's that the excerpt was out of context. But again, my point is, I'm just worried that we're laboring over minutia this, in a point of diminishing terms, to be honest with you.
So to be able to move on, I wonder if we could say the excerpts identified by the complainant were taken out of context and were not accurate, because the fact that they were taken out of context, some people think that they're accurate, but in context, they were not accurate.
or really they weren't accurate.
Yes, you're right.
You could actually almost add they were by being pulled out of the context of the novel, they portrayed something that really wasn't stated in the novel. I don't know how, we'd have to wordsmith that a little bit.
Something like they were inaccurately portrayed.
Thank you.
And we just want to go back to Mike's point that not everybody on this committee felt that way. So we need to say some or a considerable portion, you could even say, or it was brought to the several in the committee stated something along those lines, because it really was maybe one or two or three people in any given specific area that had a comment whatsoever. And I do think there are some people in this group that just kind of overall feel that that's not an appropriate book. And we need to honor that and acknowledge that in this narrative as well, because it is a balanced, I mean, it wasn't just so lopsided that we just tumbled over this. We spent about 6 hours or with the book reading, 6 or 7 hours on this book. It's not just, we just didn't run roughshod over these decisions. We spent time pausing and being reflective, and not everybody agreed with this decision, and it was a lot closer than maybe the vote suggests as well, in terms of where people were going to land when it came time to make the decision. Just because it was a binary decision, you had to pick one or the other, doesn't mean it wasn't considered and close.
So do we see anything else that we feel needs to be changed or anything else that needs to be addressed that is not here?
Could we go back to that McDeed section? I think the high school section was a easier decision. And can I just read that one more time?
Yes.
Thank you. Otherwise, I'm good with that.
Any other additions or changes? And so at this point, we'll take the few suggestions that were made. We'll make final changes to the report, which will be visible to everyone. Should we set a time at which people can see the changes before we're going to submit this to the superintendent? Because that is the next step.
We certainly can send this back out to our for a last minute look, and then there's any response. This will be published on our executive summary, which is made public on Friday for Monday's meeting. Ms. Gephardt and I will be sharing this with the Board of Education on Monday afternoon. So Friday is when it would become public to the community, be part of the executive summary.
So changes can be made, it can be shared back out tomorrow. And
I think we can share it out in the morning and ask if there's any concerns to make sure we have them, let's say by tomorrow is Wednesday, by 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Hopefully there are none that we've kind of talked through, but if there are any blatant things that you see that have concern by 4 o'clock tomorrow, that'll give us time to rectify that if need be.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have to vote on this. It was just about expressing our final thoughts as a committee.
These are our final thoughts as a committee, and we do not need to vote on it. It just should accurately demonstrate our thoughts and recommendations.
All right. Well, thank you again for everybody who has participated. Very grateful to all of you for the time that you've committed to these decisions and to looking over the recommendation. And so we will send it back out, or we'll at least let you know that changes have been made since you already have the document. We'll make sure everybody knows changes that have been made, and we will get those to you so you can look at them tomorrow.
And then any final comments, if you would let us know by 4 o'clock tomorrow so that Dr. Metcalf can forward the final to the executive summary. But I do want to echo, thank you for your commitment to the students of Moore County Schools. Y'all have been an amazing group, and it's been a fast-paced, furious, back-to-back meetings, and I just appreciate all of you for your commitment to what we do. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Really appreciate your willingness to serve and your willingness to participate in the process. So thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Great, take care.